We're going to do another upgrade today, taking you from your struggle self to your mogul self so that you can live at a higher level, achieve all of the success, health, and wealth that you are wanting to. So first, we're going to learn about how to say goodbye to that lower self. Then we're going to learn how to let your newer, higher self, mogul self, come on in so you know how to do this upgrade so that all the amazing things that life is wanting to give you can be received, because the lower self, that stuff doesn't come into them. The absolute higher self is the one that receives everything, all the good stuff, all the high frequency stuff. So stay tuned. These are multi-million-dollar upgrades that are typically given to people that pay coaching programs that start at $100,000 and go up from there. So you're really getting a benefit, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So, number one, we have to be willing to let go of our lower self, because a lot of transformations I've done, my team and I, over the years, people are absolutely desperate and wanting to become that higher self, that top mogul self that can run a reality that, while it may look like it's harder to do, it's way easier than what your lower self is doing. It's like the strangest paradox. The lower self has all these more challenges, and it's actually a harder reality to run than the higher mogul self can run a bigger reality that is easier and so much more fun. That's why you can see that these people that are the top moguls, I'll just take like Mark Cuban at this point, like 300 businesses, same person, same 24 hours, but the higher self has way more energy. The mogul self has way more intelligence and capacity. So we got to say goodbye to the lower self. And what I find is a lot of clients over the years and different people that I've helped, they want to be this higher self, this influencer, this creator, this mogul. They want to live their dreams, but they're like hoarding their lower self, because what it can feel like is like letting go of you. It's almost like, I want this, but I want to hold on to these identities. I want to hold on to this reality. Like, it's almost like there's I'm trying to think of who it is. There's an amazing creator who always talks about the willingness to kill their lower self, the older self, and let the newer self come in. But people who are steeped in a lot of fear, which is the challenge, if you're in your lower self, then you've got all this fear to let go of your lower self. It's the challenge of being the lower self. If you're in your higher self, interestingly, you don't have fear about letting more of your higher self in most of the time. You're excited about it because you're like, higher self goes, let's go higher. Your lower self goes, let's go lower. Just the laws of physics. So we got to stop hoarding our lower self. Like, I got to hold on to this. It's like, like somebody wants to give you an amazing new life full of amazing reality, and how you might define it, some life full of luxury, but you're wanting to like hoard all the stuff, like some hoarder of your lower self and your lower level life that you may or may not want at this point. And then people are like wanting both. They're like, and it's trying to blend these two realities, and it doesn't really work. But it can feel like somebody's losing something. So people can go through certain parts of a transformation and then like stop when it feels like like other parts of them are going to dissolve and detox out and be reprogrammed out. And so I'm inviting you to know that we've got to be able to say goodbye to the lower self and be like, great, thank you for your role. Thank you for playing. Thank you for doing your part. Thank you for taking me this far along. And I'm also inviting you to retire and transform into my higher self, which means you're not going to be the lower self anymore. So we need to be willing to say goodbye. We need to be willing to let go of it and trust that transformation can have that quality to it. It's like, oh, we're upgrading. It feels so good. But something it took me a long time to learn until, a more recent chapter is that I realized what was happening for my own self as well in transformation as well as clients, is that there's like a grieving of the former self. of the lower self as you're releasing it, letting it go, saying goodbye to it. So if you need to do that, have a funeral, thank it, go ahead and go through like a funeral process of like, this is who this person was. Thank you for doing this, this, and that. This is the contribution that you made to my life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But definitely go through the process of letting go of that self. If there is grieving, grieve it and, thank you and feel whatever you need to feel about what your lower self did for you, what it endured, or even if we just call it your previous self, probably even better, your previous self. Acknowledge it. Do whatever you need to do. If you do need to go through some sort of a ceremonial process to say, again, honor it, thank it, something that allows it to say, and that was your moment, that was your chapter, that was your time. That's the previous version of me, and this is now who I am. I'm stepping into my mogul self. I'm building my kingdom, my queendom. And I'm not taking you along as that lower self. And as we can also do, we can invite that lower self to simply transform and be like, you're just part of coming along with this newer self, this higher mogul self. But it's 100% to say that self, that previous self, is not the one I am inviting. However it functioned, whatever it did for that time frame and all that it did for you, whatever its motives were, those parts of yourself, it's about 100% just releasing, saying goodbye, letting go of it, and allowing it to transform into your higher mogul self. Instead of feeling like I'm losing something, I have to hang on to it, I have to hoard it, I have to try to be this and this. That's one of the worst programming things in society. Is like, I want to be all this, but I'm still going to be this, right? I'm going to be this amazing entrepreneur or something that you might want to be and run your own reality and call the shots instead of being in slavery. But then I'm going to be over here trying to do the lower self and be in some weird relationship with someone in your family or something, where you're lowering yourself and doing what your lower self, once did or did to get you to that moment or help you survive or whatever it was. So you're not here to be these two selves that are like fighting with each other for this or this. And we've got to let the lower self go. We've got to let it effectively fade out, die out, and even better, let it transform and make its way up the trajectory into an upgrade. So, even something we do in our coaching process in the internal family systems approach, which you may or may not have heard of, is connecting to that different self, that other self, understanding it, that it's played a role, that it had motives, that it had, its own meaning, it had its own strategies for what it did to be productive and for just surviving. And just giving yourself permission to say, well, that self and its job and its role is appreciated. We honor it. Throw it a retirement party if you want. And here's the, new role. Here's where I'm going, letting it know I am a higher self. I am an adult. I am a mogul. I am here to thrive and experience a reality that's exponential. You can invite that lower self if you want to transform into something new. Like say it's jealous or something. It's like, well, what do you want to transform into instead? It's like, it could be zealous. Um, it could be whatever it is that you want to have it transform into, but it's very different than trying to become into your higher mogul self, have that life, and then trying to drag your lower self with you, because people have been programmed in this world to not want to give up something, not want to lose something. And the reality is, you want to let that self go. You want to let it have had its moment. have had its time. It was for the previous era. And it's like anything, like not I don't know what in humanity is like everything has to be forever. It's like there's nothing like that. There's nothing in the like everything is evolving all the time. So if it does need some sort of a ceremony, a goodbye party, that you need to do for it and honor it or say, this is it's almost like, this may seem weird, but like if you're sending it to the gas chamber or something, you're like, we're just out of here. You're going to have to give it its last meal. Like this is the meal of the lower self. And this is like, this is your last moment and the higher self is taken over, and whatever it is, feel free to have some sort of a process that honors that self for all that it's done, like all of its service. It's like a military thing, all of its service, but letting it know that you are a mogul self now and you've got a plan for us. You're like, I've got this plan, so this is what I'm doing, this is who I'm being, and you're letting it go, and you're saying goodbye to it, and you're saying goodbye to the reality that it was creating, because that lower self is creating a much lower reality, and your higher mogul self wants the liberation to create something that is much of a greater higher reality and represents your ultimate destiny and can take you on an ascension in your trajectory. So saying goodbye to your lower self, letting it go, giving it permission to retire, to wrap it up, to close the chapter is one of the most important skills of the top moguls. And while we all in the world, especially the world of influencing and creating and leading, we talk about creating everything all the time, which is my favorite part of reality. But we also need to be able to talk about closing things up, wrapping up a chapter, letting it go, saying goodbye, and be willing to be like, I am 100% oriented to my most amazing future and going toward that amazing future self and everything that it's trying to do for you and trying to create so it can give it to you. And it's up to you to be the one that does all of the upgrading to collaborate. All right, moguls, you've now been able to get a sense of what it's like to let go of your lower self, to say goodbye, and allow your higher mogul self to fly. Thanks for tuning in. Please go ahead and like and subscribe and share this with someone that you know that can use this upgrade, because most people are in that are in, there's something that they're wrapping up, letting go, saying goodbye to. And it often seems like it's another person or something like that, but it's the other version of you, the lower version of you that was for another time. So share this, help others make this upgrade, because when we have a world of people that are connected to their higher mogul self and that future self, and replacing and say goodbye to that other lower self or past self, whatever it is, it's going to be amazing and it's going to elevate all of us. So here's to all of us, just absolutely stepping out of that lower self, letting it go, and saying goodbye so we can fly. Thanks, moguls, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.